What we do in that lab time is a lot of things that have been historically a part of the computer science or lower division courses. So writing programs and modifying them and analyzing them and testing them and so forth. But then we get into things that we just either didn't have the opportunity or the time to do. And what happens with 6 hours of lab is that gives you a little more flexibility for doing different kinds of things. And so one thing we do with that extra time is just all sprinkled through our Lab-Centric curricula are these embedded assessments, so self-tests or quizzes or things like that. We have there's room for collaboration as well, and in fact, one of our tools for collaboration is sort of simultaneously an assessment tool and also a learning tool. We call it a gated collaboration. What that means is we supply a question to the student, and the student provides an answer and then gets to compare his or her answer with the answers of the other people in the lab. And so the idea there is that, number one, we can find out about student confusion, and number two, a lot of what we want to teach in the introductory programming courses is how to talk about a given topic, or what are the right words to say to talk about programming constructs. The key thing, a key thing, is that the lab instructor, whoever's down there, and the way we've organized these things is to have specific lab times, schedules that students show up for, just the same as a physics or chemistry lab would work. And there's a lab instructor, typically one of the teaching assistants, and also maybe one or two lab assistants who are working for units. At any rate, the lab instructor can see by looking online what the students are doing. A lot of their work is visible to him or her. And in particular, the lab instructor can observe somebody making a mistake or showing some confusion or encountering some misconception and address it right there. And that's a really neat aspect of the system, I think. Compared to the traditional organization, there's more hands-on work. But what we've noticed, a lot of our lower division courses involve projects of one type or another. At the end, there'll be some big thing, and there seems to be in the lab-centric instruction, there seems to be less problems that students encounter doing those projects, and we suspect is because they become more skillful and learn about the details of programming more in the lab. I mentioned the timely targeted tutoring. For me as an educator, this was just the most thrilling thing of the switch-in systems, was to be able to nip a misconception in the bud or clear up some confusion right away, rather than waiting for 3 weeks or whatever for an exam to reveal that students didn't know anything in the third 6 week that they should have learned in the second or third week. There's these frequent embedded assessments. There's a lot of feedback that students get, both from the lab activities and from the system and from the staff. Collaboration. We've recently become more interested in building more collaboration in our courses. This came after Well, one of my colleagues, Brian Harvey, got his PhD in CS education and his thesis topic was the state of community and collaboration in local high schools. And so when he joined the faculty in 1986, he installed a whole lot of collaborative activities of one kind or another. As time went on, we began to realize that groups doing group work often need group therapy, and we neither had the time nor the expertise to provide that. And so that combined with complaints by a number of the real hotshot students in the course that they were paired in a group with people who were just kind of parasites. The student term for them was Klingons. So because of those complaints and our feeling of inadequacy of being able to manage the groups, a lot of the group work kind of died out. Last semester in our data structures course, we decided to bring it back, partly because of the time factor. Again, we had room in the lab of 6 hours a week to keep tabs on students, and you really get to know students well in having them in lab with you for 6 hours a week. There's a greater variety of activities, as I noted before. We used to have in our courses the sort of standard thing where there would be lab exercises, and those would be pretty easy, and then there would be a homework, and that jumped up in difficulty, and then there would be the projects, which jumped even further up. And some students can handle those jumps, and others can't. And what the Lab-Centric curriculum provides the opportunity to do, at least, is to kind of mellow out that gradient from easy to hard things. I might mention a couple things. One is that this is not distance learning in the way that most people view that term. We have so far designed our curriculum to work with these 25 or 30 or 35 students in the lab, working with each other, dealing with a TA. And we just haven't yet had a chance to explore how this could be translated into a more traditional distance learning sort of situation. Berkeley's just now getting into encouraging distance learning. They have this new program called UC Online that's trying to move in that direction, and so that'll be one of the things we'll be exploring over the next couple of years. Another thing is that some of you may say, you're doing lab-centric instruction already. And we've seen that in a lot of courses in high school, in community colleges, and other universities where you have a teacher and a bunch of students, and the teacher maybe gives a little lecture for 10 minutes or something, and then assigns the students some tasks to work on in group, say, or something like that. And that's great. We recognize that we think that's a great way to run a class. And what the tools and framework and software that we put together allow to happen is there's just better support for the teacher in our environments. And I mentioned this gated collaboration tool that we use. You probably dealt with a lot of times the teaching assistant in a discussion section or whatever asks a question, and waiting for, ideally all 30 hands would answer. What really happens in practice is that you get 5 hands raised, and two persons answer, and it's always the same 2 persons. And so we with that mechanism, it's alone, it's hard to keep track of what the students are up to. There's benefits for instructors. I for one, don't think I'm a very good lecturer, and so this lets me play to my strengths. What I enjoy most about teaching is picking up things for the students to do, and so this gives me a lot of opportunity to do that. But you know, so much of traditional education is just this, you know, you lecture and you're good at it or not good at it. And what the system allows you to do is to, you know, play more to your strengths. A little note, we noticed that there seems to be less cheating on projects in our lab-centric courses, and I don't know the reason for that. I can think of a couple of possibilities. One is that you get a chance in the lab to become competent at putting together a project, and whereas in the traditional format, it's we've seen more instances of students being snowballed. They just get steamrolled by the content, and then it gets to the end of the semester, and they have to, you know, hand in a project, and some of them just say, well, I can steal it from somewhere. The other thing is, again, this issue of lab instructor being aware of where the students are at, and you know, the students aren't anonymous. The TA at least knows exactly who they are and has been working with them over the semester. We've done some research on. We haven't had really much of an opportunity to have course number one in lab format and course number one in traditional format in the same semester. We did a little bit of that, but just looking at the courses in isolation, there's been this sort of tantalizing different performance from males and females. So I taught our intro course some years back in the lab-centric format, and the women in the introductory programming class scored half a grade above the men, and that had never happened to me in 30 years of teaching at Berkeley. So I might get on to something here. Something that's more that we're a little more confident about claiming is that you ask a student how good a programmer he or she is, and for the male students, they almost always overestimate their programming skills, and the women almost always underestimate their programming skills. And one of the things coming through the lab-centric format is that students just seem to be much more aware of their strengths and weaknesses, and that to me seems like something that might lead to less attrition as students, as students either are more aware of their strengths and weaknesses, and therefore whether they can persist in the program, or some of the research on some of the gender issues research suggests that female students are, they don't know how they compare with the rest of the class, and so that discourages them from going on rather than continuing in the field. Let's see. So we've invented a number of courses in this format, and what I should do now is hand this off to Nate Clearton.
So you said to tag me a bit to get off the model. I'm Nate. I worked with Mike for several years, and I just want to show you a little bit about what goes on in the course, little hands-on stuff there. But first, I wanted to just mention all the courses that we've got so far. One way maybe we're going to be able to work together or help is suggesting or have stuff from us or contribute stuff back or something, somehow work together in terms of curriculum. So we have a lot of stuff, and some of these you've probably heard of in other ways. This first one is it's actually something being done by Dan Garcia, D.D. Joy, Computing Studies at Berkeley. It's one of the new AP trial courses. Language is Scratch, actually a variant of Scratch. We've got about 60 hours of material there. And it's sort of a CS1.5. There's programming, but there's also big ideas and so forth. It's a neat course. And Scratch does a lot of math. It's actually taken over for our CS1 for 9 majors in math. So right now it is. So it does a lot of stuff. It's got recursion, it's got stuff procedures, so new word from Scratch. This one here in Scheme is probably our most CS1 in Scheme. We do a lot of recursion, a lot of hierarchy functions. Scheme, yeah, never was very popular. We did it a lot at Berkeley. It's probably our most refined course in some ways because we did it for so many years. I taught this for many semesters. Mike taught it before that and so forth. We've got other CS1, several different CS1s here. The CS2 is the one I'm going to show you in a little bit. I won't go into that a little bit, but it's a data structures course, Java. So, and then we have another one. These are all semester-long courses. So, for us, we think that's about 90 hours of material, 6 hours a week times 15 weeks. This one here, the CS1, I'm just giving you the lay of the land here, so maybe you can ask questions about what these are specifically. I can show some of these. This is actually an AP, the regular AP course. We got some funding from the University of California, Office of the President, to do some work. It's very polished, and on people doing art stuff. It's very polished, a lot of neat stuff going on there. The only particular issue about this course, very game focused, is got some special licensing issues. Now, what I heard from them is that you can use it. They're going to do it through the California Virtual Campus, CVC. So for those of you that are in California, you can have it for free and all. Outside of California, there are some issues. But that's but there's a range of things in here. We think at times we thought we might go the non-programming into the future, one of the upper division kind of courses at Cal or whatever, what have you. We haven't branched that much. These are whole courses as well. I think this model works very well for pieces, course pieces. Take a week, you just put it in and do this, and you'll see how to do that. So let's look at CS2 specifically. I just want to give you a picture of the course. So, in Berkeley, this is the first time that the students are exposed to Java. We've got a wacky CS1 for majors in Scheme. We use the structure interpretation programming and so forth. So they haven't seen Java yet, so they do a little bit of CS1 learning Java. I'll show you some of that stuff in a bit. But they also have software engineering elements, test-driven development. So this is a big course. It's one of the courses we would say. Try not to take other courses. Try not to take other courses while you're doing this one because it's not. You're going to focus on just this. So there's a lot of material there. And as Mike was mentioning before, it's very highly collaborative right now. I don't know if that's the materials are sort of focused in do everything in pairs except for some of the assessments, some of the quizzes, all the exams are not pair-based. Well, projects and so forth. Let's look at PACT. I'm going to show you. I want to show some what Andy's been doing for a bit on a way to see the course. So one thing is, these courses are really big, 90 hours of material. So you're in the middle of the course, being a teacher here, and you're just lost. You're like, I know I can teach you something that we look, and it's just so much material. Because all of this work that goes in there, just 90 hours of work, this gentle gradient means there's more stuff there. So some of the things Andy's been working on is ways to visualize the course, ways to work with the course. So this is the course. Time goes across in layers, and each one of these is a day. We're going to look at this day, day 3. So each of these are 3-hour chunks of time. The students come and sit for 3 hours in the lab. And this is a Zoom user interface, directly manipulable, so you can easily move things around right now. It's also an in-progress piece of work we want to show off a little bit. We also want to get a sense of the course as a whole. So we're in here in the third day. We're talking about Java objects. First thing to sort of notice is hopefully say that there's pretty colors. But the idea behind the pretty colors is that you get a sense of the flow of a day at a top level. So zoom out a little bit here. And you can get a sense that with the blues, you have to know these are static pages. So the students are just reading these pages. These are just providing them information, a little bit of information. Typical course that I have to share, like in pure static pages. This orange is a gated collaboration Mike talked about. So here's a little gate. They actually have to come here, they have to answer a question before they can see what the other students have done. They've got to walk through this to provide a little bit of feedback to the other students, to their colleagues as well as to the instructor. These are self-tests. They're rising up. So each of these presents a problem, gives them immediate feedback, and so forth. Now you can say, well, wow, we got a lot of self-tests right in a row there. Maybe we would have had to do so you start to see what you've done here and how you might do it. It comes back. And so this is just practice. You can see there's a lot of practice here in the self-test. It goes on, and we have, so now they're working on a particular thing. So the bank account, of course, we can't have them get out of the course without having to learn how to make deposits into an object. So they're doing the bank account thing. Some static work here. What's not being shown here right now is that some of these are programming tasks, some of these are analysis or debugging tasks. That should also be coming out here. The tagging systems a little bit right now in a gated collaboration. So it goes on. So you can sort of get a sense of how the thing is flowing at a top level. And then hopefully manipulate it as well in an easier way. This is an authoring tool. This is just for the authors to use. The students aren't going to see this. Where we've gone with the students, why don't we switch now to the Moodle, is we had a web app that we were writing ourselves. This was back in 2002, 2003 or something. Worked on it, had programmers doing PHP when they were living crazy. And I couldn't wait to get out of that practice because dealing with all the bugs that came up with authentication stuff was rough. So what we've done is we moved to Moodle. So this is pretty much a stock Moodle. You guys, most people here are probably familiar with Moodle. Moodle sort of hasn't changed for 3 years. Still the same. Web 1.0, 0.5 maybe. I don't know what it is, but it does a lot of things that are great for us and for you too. It's sort of one thing now. So we don't have to worry about authentication, but we lost a little bit. As you can see, this is a large course, and it's all there. So we've got to do a little bit of work. We're just switching over now to make this more manageable. When you're doing some authoring in here, which ends up you have to do some authoring in here, moving those back to the top. You're going to leave 22, which takes about 5 seconds to scroll down to. You know you need your interface work. So let's zoom in on 3 here for a little bit. So here's day 3. This is a 3-hour chunk, and we just looked at it here. So a little bit to talk about. You can go here too. So I've got this course up. That's why we've had you here. If you want to go and just plug around in it, you're welcome to. Either now, I'm supposed to say you're supposed to go now, but you can also do this later. And it's veritas.ecs.berkeley.edu/courses. Now this is a spare middle server I had lined up. This is not a production server that the students are in. But you're welcome to do that. And if you go there, you'll see the end-picked course that you want to click on. You might just click on Veritas, but you're God. You'll see S2 then picked Winter Conference 2011 in the course if you want to play around. How many of you teach CS2 or need to worry about this material? So if you in particular might teach this, just to look around that. We'd love for you to ask that question. He wrote on it. So you get a little bit of a sense of what's going on here with these icons. Start the day with a quiz. That's a very nice practice. And quizzes are something that students take individually. Almost all the rest are working in pairs. We do that. And so a quiz goes over what they learned the previous day. And it's very important. When I was teaching this, I spent a lot of time with my I made my TAs. This might be different. We're going to have to, not many people have to. So we're going to have to think about how all this works. But the TAs would grade this during the lab session. So this is a 3-hour session. The quiz would be done by 30 minutes into the lab. And I would say to the instructor, stop there saying, I am grading the quizzes now, and go away to your computer and spend time. So it's supposed to be fast. It's supposed to take 20 minutes to grade a group of 20 students, something like that. And this is crucial in that we get a lot of feedback on how the students, where the students were at. And this is material that happened in the previous lab generally. And from there, they could walk up to the student and say, what do you think about pointers? the student goes, that's good stuff. And then, easy. And then after a little while, they're like, yeah, that student has no clue. You didn't know they had no clue, but now you know, so this is getting all the feedback. And lots of feedback that's coming from the student to the instructor. This is one of the main ones we have, is start the day with a quiz. We change it at times. Students complain we might do a quiz every other lab in various ways, but that's one of the crucial ways we get feedback. Moodle's not ideal. It's sort of slowing it down a little bit in our previous lab. For those of you who use it, grading is a little bit of a death by 1,000 clicks kind of thing, but lots of information. So you can see what these are all. This is real student responses from spring, last semester, 2 semesters ago. Much fake names, but you can put here. You can see what the student did. For those of you who are really like to use quizzes before. So all these exist, and we're relatively happy with these quizzes. These are not from the government recently. These are quizzes we've had over the years. Okay, so head back to the main page. So Mike talked a little bit about the small gradient between activities. So if this is a 3-hour lab, there's a lot of stuff kind of going on here. That means small activities. These are static pages, so you don't click on the static pages. These are small. We don't want to spend a lot of time reading these things. Occasionally we get longer ones. We go next here. But the goal is to have that sort of size sheet. And we can then see where the students are as they're reading through these small chunks of things. Once you head back to the menu, one thing I also wanted to show you is opportunity for like we talked about, targeted tutoring. That's kind of one of the things we're really excited about. Mike was really excited about. So the quiz is one time you get information from the quiz, but there's a lot of feedback happening throughout here. So let's look. They're working on this bank account. And let's go to this brainstorm at the end of the bank account. Okay, so here's a little question. So you've worked with the bank account, you wrote a merge class, I forget what some of the other tasks they had to do. They had to do something before and so forth. Don't go into details. So it says, what are the proposed solutions for merging the accounts following this? This is making a student. But there's 2 errors here in this code that students might be able to get right now. They're not using a method to get into this other object, or you're trying to set a private variable over there, so this is going to actually throw an error. And then sort of more perniciously, they're changing the local version of the other account, so they're not actually zeroing out the other account. They're leaving the money in there because they're making the new one 0 and they're not overwriting the old one. And so you say to your students, well, how do you guys do? So how are you? Show me, I wanted to show lab 3. So in the, show 13 I mean, and then show so this is the students all have to have given the answer here. This is the gated collaboration. And the students do pretty well. It turns out one issue that might come up when we talk about Berkeley students, they do pretty well. They're stressed. And that might be different than some of the other students. We take liberties with them, unfortunately, very that you're going to be able to. But they do pretty well. If you go down and you know that, a little bit more, a little less. Okay, keep going. They start to get a little wacky. This one, this does not work because my balance does not have a call on it. Kind of right. I mean, it should have been called, but it's not really right. You might want to talk to this. Careful now. A little slur. But you're not really getting the idea of what a variable reference is versus a function call and so forth. And some of these other ones aren't great. There's an art to learning these collaborations that we don't necessarily put as the classes of this sort of thing yet. Where you're making the student learn something, sort of this dual function. They're really working hard to learn things. But there's not an absolute right answer because that's really boring. If there's just one right answer, there's no benefit to them looking at the other students' answers. So there's got to be a variety of answers. So if they want to look at the other students' answers, it's crucial because that means they actually care about what they write. Just someone else can look at it. but also it gives good feedback to the instructor, so that the instructor gets good feedback about where the students are. Getting a good sense of where the students are here. And then you just look at this very quickly, a minute or two. You kind of look through, and you get to know the really good students very quickly. So just a sense of the feedback and how it can help by the instructor in the lab on students that are tutoring a little bit.
In terms of numbers of students, what's the max? We have 60 students. And
One room?
Center and no lab. Okay, so.
One room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it would change. It would change. We max, it depends. But max,
I just want to get it because I
25, 30 works. And it depends, but it works differently when you're the only person there as opposed to lab aides. If you have two lab aides, that works differently. The lab aides are usually pretty, they need a lot of help to help. You've got to help people. That's the wrong answer. Here's the right one. I'll type it for you.
One solution to that is to, for anybody asking a question, they have to also have asked their neighbors. And so when you answer the question, then you're answering it for 3 people instead of just 1. So we've confronted that issue. In fact, the way the budget crunches have affected us in computer science is that they've cut back our the number of TA resources that we get for a given batch of students, and so we've had to figure out how to accommodate that.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Because it's awfully hard. The good students are going to make it. We send them to track, okay, when we're done.
Sure.
Okay. But they're always going to make it. But it's
the ones that are falling off the back of the student train.
yeah,
Right. Push them to keep them up. Yeah. And the other sort of related to that is the issue of what this brings totally online. Don't block up so much. So who's going to answer less things and so forth. You truly see all that. We don't have all the answers for that. But the general notions of quick, easily digestible feedback from your instructor to go with quick, targeted sort of responses to it might be a privilege.
I was wondering the screen you just had up there, that's in Moodle. What Moodle resource are you using where there's a question that's
Right, this is a straight, we took this right out of Moodle, and it doesn't work up great. You're actually going to rewrite this shortly. This is a forum, it's a Q&A forum.
Okay.
So it exists in stock Moodle, Q&A forum.
I just started last week.
It might have more modules, I'm not sure.
Well, it has top data on that, so it has data. It has to have answered this before they can go to
It
data.
has conditional stuff, that's right. Yeah.
Well,
That's right. So in that, the main list on the portal, you can go to that. It has ways conditioning whether you can see something based on it.
they did that.
Moodle came out like 2 years later or something.
Oh, yes, it came out last, it came out in.
Can you give me a sense of the development time of course of this versus the more traditional where you've got a good textbook and you've got a lab manual?
That's right. And so in a lot of ways, go back to the portal for a second. And so they did segue to talk for Andy to talk about this. This is a textbook. We often really use a textbook, but in the end,
It becomes a textbook. You're writing a
becomes a
textbook.
textbook. You're writing this really on it's hard to write a textbook. It's harder to write a textbook because you really write feedback. So writing these from scratch is probably impossible. And so the right thing to do is to collaborate with other instructors and to borrow and share and to tweak a little bit every semester and have shared resources. So that's something that Andy's focusing on his research. I'm going to let him take over a little bit to maybe
Sure. So, we have about 10 minutes left in this room before all of your brains will be melted from the heat. So, the big takeaway is just that. If you came and you sat here and you're excited about Lab-Centric instruction, and you go to the site, take a look at what we're doing, and you want to get involved, what can you do? There's 3 basic answers. One is we have some stuff. So we have full courses, we have parts of courses, we have activities, we have knowledge on how to build these things. And you're welcome to all of that, including the whole courses, if you're interested in running just our version of CS1, 2, or 3. 2 is you guys have stuff. So everybody in this room is certainly a domain expert in something that we have not yet built a Lab-Centric course on. And it's very hard to build these courses, but it's very possible also. If you sit down and you have the right tools, which we can provide you with, we have authoring environments, we have ways of interacting with Moodle that are a lot prettier and a lot easier to deal with than just 1,000 clicks on a web page. We have ways of making the task tractable for you. So if you want to start developing courses for the topics that you teach, we can help you with that. The third thing we have is we have ways of connecting you guys to each other and to other people who are interested in developing similar courses. So if you want to try to sit down with somebody that we know already, or somebody in this room, or somebody in the community as we grow this community over the next few months here, we would be thrilled to facilitate that interaction and get you talking to the right people to help you build these courses. So the big community website, the place to go is lab-centric.berkeley.edu. And this is kind of the community portal for everything Lab-Centric instruction. Fair warning, we're just now hitting our launch date for this website, so things are a little bit rough around the edges still right now, but it's coming together, and it has the sorts of contact information that you'll need to get going on this venture if you're interested in building these courses yourself or using our courses. So we have in there a repository of the courses that we've already built. We have information about building new courses, and we have community tools, forums, wikis, everything that you would expect to see on a community website to help you get in touch with other people who are interested in building similar courses. We also have our curriculum editor, which is the tool that we showed you earlier with the zooming and the clicking and dragging and everything, which just makes dealing with Moodle a whole lot more pleasant. We're also interested in helping you as a pedagogical designer structure the way that you think about course design and how you collaborate with other people on course design, how you share with other people your ideas about what makes one course good and another course not so good, how you get your message out to people about what you want to build. So the big picture is we're here to help. We want to help you guys do this if you want to build Lab-Centric courses or you want to run existing Lab-Centric courses. And the way to get started is just to register for an account at labcentric.berkeley.edu so that we know that you exist. Go and say hi either on the forums or send us an email, or there's also, I'll just pull up the site real quick actually. Oops, that would be packed. So if you go to the site, you can register. There's a big button here if you're not logged in. And then up here under Getting Started, you can either hop onto the forums and make a post, just say hi, or hit this Contact an Expert link. And that's you, Mike. No, I'm the one contacting. And just drop us a line and let us know that you're out there. And we will be glad, whereby we, I mostly mean me, will be glad to help you make this move into delivering these courses yourself. So I have a personal vested interest in this and that I would like to graduate someday. And
Best kind of interest.
it's the best kind of interest, yes. And we're all very enthusiastic about helping people develop courses like this. We think it's a good idea. It seems to be very educationally sound, and the tools are all there waiting to be used. So just let us know that you're interested, and we'll get you moving in the right direction. Cool. So with that, let's take questions for the next 10 or 8 minutes until we all die from heat.
Did you see this applicable to other than computer science?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have anybody agree with that?
So we've run. I'm thinking of what's the course? The other Lab-Centric course, not CS3. IT. Tell them about something about that.
Well, let's see.
I guess it's still a program.
CS10 is a course that's just getting started at Berkeley. It's responding to two things. One, it's called the beauty and joy of computing, and the underlying assumption, what it's trying to resurrect here is that here we are, relatively old folk, and something when we were younger got us excited about computing and so forth, and we need to kind of recapture whatever it is that thrilled us, so that today's students can benefit from that too, and go and the computer science majors. And anyway, this course is responding to that need, and also for the College Board wants a pre-CS, they want a CS advanced placement course that precedes the Java programming course. And so they have some pilot efforts going on about what should be in that course and how it should work, and CS10 at Berkeley is one of the pilot sections. Also locally at Berkeley, it's responding to the lack of a computer literacy course, and so we're trying to fill the vacuum there. At any rate, it's sort of a hybrid. They run 4-hour weeks of lab sections, and then there's a 2-hour-a-week lecture and an hour discussion section. And they combine programming in Scratch with powerful ideas of computer science. So that's one thing. Another thing that maybe Nate can talk to involves statistics. One of the times I taught one of these lab-centric courses, a student came up to me afterward and said, "Gosh, this hands-on lab stuff would be perfect for an intro statistics course." And we actually got a little ways in pushing along that. But
yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of. I mean, these are all programming courses here. So there's CS track right here. And so even outside of just straight computer science, the IT side, we don't have a lot there.
But it should be said that, I mean, there's nothing about the tools that scares me in terms of teaching an IT course. Anything really STEM related seems okay to me in terms of the tools. I would be a little nervous about teaching a philosophy course, perhaps. But I would not be nervous about teaching anything math or engineering related.
The principles are, early and often getting feedback from them a lot. So maybe we're blessed in the programming is that, programming is typically very interactive. You're sitting there with an IDE, and you hit go, and boom, you get this syntax, you get this error. So that's interaction back and forth. It can be harder if you were doing it in English. So chemistry lab, they do a lot of lab work. It's a very lab-centric situation, but you don't have online tools. The online tools are not going to be as useful. So please look at it in various ways. I think statistics would be a great place to go. We haven't pushed very deeply into it. I think small modules would work well, so pieces of other courses. It's not the whole course. We can do the whole course. You would have to just a little piece here where you're trying to do this, or a piece there where you're trying to do that, or you can get online. When the online work is relatively authentic, can be rich in feedback and a lot of these questions.
It seems like what's critical to it is having a simulation, a reliable simulation tool where you've got a programming language. I mean, we have these circuit simulation programs, or these power energy simulation stuff that we're starting to work with, and it seems like it might work for that.
Yeah, and for instance, in the machine structures course, there's some Verilog work in there, and work with CPU simulators that seems to be a natural fit.
Yeah, so this one doesn't use Moodle, and Andy's working on sort of having Moodle to be one of the delivery platforms. So we've got the offering, we've got the community. Moodle's just a way to deliver the courses. It's sort of the lowest hanging of the various. Still haven't been approved.
Yeah. Principally, lab-centric instruction is not tied to any delivery method. Sure.
Students are they required to have the log on to the content?
That's not strictly true. I mean, you have to do something. I mean, you come and sit down in lab.
So it's not to our site. Are you talking about to any site?
In order to use the instruction,
we have our students log into Moodle. You could just as easily have your students log into whatever your learning management system of choice is.
How to get this curriculum or whatever curriculum someone's developing in whatever platform into your platform. And there's other ways to import and export between the systems. I'm not familiar with your learning management D2L. Yeah, okay, now I am. So I'm not, I don't know the import export. So technology is HTML, which a lot of this is, but when you start to get the interactive things. It's important that they authenticate first, because then you have their interactions associated with them. And for all the reporting and so forth, it is important, because if it's just all purely guesswork, you would get a lot less feedback than things work. Getting feedback to these purposes is hard. So that's pretty crucial that the students are authenticated when they're doing work. I want to draw and something I want to say is here, we have the same problem in these programming courses is they're in their browser doing the sort of learning new stuff, the quizzes and so forth. And then they go over to their IDE and their programming, and the two are at a gulf. Not to the same extent that one's like mixing chemicals or soldering circuits, but they are a gulf. They're not authenticated in the IDE, so we get their interactions and so forth. So I think about ways to merge those in various ways, but we do have a gulf between sort of the simulator experience thing and learning management strategy. Any questions?
Where do you guys stand now at Berkeley and on how you determine whether you choose it traditionally or lab-centric sense of the professor, or?
Professor's run by whatever the professor feels like doing. Professor decides everything.
Well, I mean, it has to be set up it has to be set up at the beginning of the semester, right? In the schedule, whether you want a 1 hour lecture, and
that's right.
How many TAs you need.
So all that stuff, the professor would take it. And some professors don't like this style. They've gotten where they've gotten by being really good at lecture. They perform. And maybe when, I'm not being trying to bias here, but lecture is not a great way. When students walk out of there, they're very entertained, but they may not have a lot of information. So this is very different. And I've had TAs that complain like, I want to, present to the students, and all I'm doing is helping them to be educated.
Yeah.
One last question. Yeah.
An effective measure of outcomes and learning more. You know that because
Mike mentioned some of our research. One situation we had, because different professors do it, different finals, different projects, so you can't really compare two formats. But we did have a situation where we had one course with the same final, two different formats. We could do some fancy statistics on there. And what generally happened was that the students self-selected, this was a third course, so after they had done it, self-selected, the ones that were less able, self-selected was the Lab-Centric format. The hot shots stayed away. The majority of the students were outside. So self-selected students, they were, I think, they were estimated to do one grade lower. They moved up. So they did much better on their exam, controlling for all sorts of background stuff, what grades they expected to get and various things than we would have expected. So being self-selected in there, they chose to medicate themselves with this Lab-Centric. And also, the consequence, they also did not do the formal project because of the process. They don't have a lot of information why. So we said that project exam, but I think that almost answers the project.
Would you consider like a pre-test in CS2, they've done CS1, would that be an effective measure, you think? Doing upon a pre-test before you really got into the next course?
Post-test also.
Right. But the post-test is designed around how you deliver the material in that course. The next course could be
It's not very hard having the treatment to be entire semester-long courses.
Might be worthwhile, though, the first course that we converted to the Lab-Centric format, we gave them a variation of, their final exam was a variation of a final exam I'd used a couple of semesters earlier. And the lab group did a half a standard deviation better than the previous group, and that we found that encouraging. And then, as Nate mentioned, you get our subsequent more advanced courses were really more dependent on the instructor, and so it's hard to answer.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.